2 minutes on the clock, but the Celtics ended up running out 128 to 124 winners. The Brooklyn Nets beat the Washington Wizards 118-110 in the early game. There are 4 other matchups going on as well. In Formula One, reigning champion Lewis Hamilton dramatically won the British Grand Prix at Silverstone. His Mercedes suffered a puncture on the final lap, but the Briton had enough of a lead to guide the car round and extend his lead at the top of the drivers' standings.
Just down the straight, it just deflated, and I just noticed the shape just shift a little bit, and that was definitely like heart in the mouth kind of feeling, because I wasn't quite sure if it had gone down until it hit the brakes, and obviously you could see the tyre was falling off the rim. I was just praying to try and get it round, not be too slow. I nearly didn't get around the last 2 corners, but thank God we did, and I really owe it to the team. I think ultimately maybe we should have stopped.
That's championship leader Lewis Hamilton.
Alistair, thank you. And finally, if you're spending your summer on a Greek beach, you could cool down and educate yourself at the same time. Greece has opened its first underwater museum, giving the public the chance to dive down to the wreck of a ship that sank in the 5th century BC. It's situated off the island of Alonissos in the Aegean Sea, and it's believed to have gone down in bad weather while carrying thousands of amphoras of wine. Kostas Estatiou runs the Alonissos Triton Dive Centre, which will operate the tours. So what can divers expect?
It is very impressive. The ship carried about 4,000 to 4,500 amphoras. Most of them are still there, and they're intact, in perfect condition, as they were loaded on the ship. The ship was sunk around the 5th century BC, around the 425 BC. It was a large ship for the era. Up until the time of discovery, the archaeologists thought that the Greeks could not construct such big vessels. It started the trip either from northern Greece, Chalkidiki, and this we can understand from the type of amphoras that was loaded, or from Skopelos, the neighboring island. And because both these areas were wine-producing areas, the archaeologists claimed that this was carrying wine, and also oil, could be oil as well.
Kostas Estatiou. That brings us to the end of this edition of the Newsroom. The next edition will be coming up at 1 a.m. GMT. Thanks for listening.
This is the BBC World Service. How do we discover new medicines?
Though about 25% of our medicines are from plants now, throughout history we've been much more reliant on the natural world, mainly from plants, but also mushrooms, animals and minerals.
Can a supercomputer find a solution to COVID-19?
There's a lot of complexity there, but even in the devilish behaviour of a virus like this, there's systematics and order.
Are humans able to outwit asteroids?
If an asteroid is detected that could impact Earth years or decades in the future, you wouldn't have to deflect it a lot for it to miss the Earth if you had enough time.
And is there something bigger than infinity?
Are some infinities bigger than others?
Yes.
No. There are different types of infinity.
Understanding our world and looking to the future. Science on the BBC World Service at bbcworldservice.com.
As a funeral director in New York City, Clive Anderson had never experienced anything like the huge amount of bodies coming into his care at the height of the coronavirus pandemic. And having turned his back on an ultra-conservative church he grew up in, how did he find new faith to help him get through these times? Join me, Colm Flynn, as I visit Clive's funeral home in New York to hear his story. That's Heart and Soul, after the latest BBC News headlines.
BBC News with Eileen McHugh. The first manned mission by a private company to the International Space Station has safely returned to Earth. The SpaceX Crew Dragon capsule, scorched by its fiery descent from orbit, splashed down off the coast of Florida. NASA's administrators said the mission's success marked the beginning of a new era in human spaceflight. One of President Trump's top medical advisors has warned that the US is entering a new phase in its fight against the coronavirus pandemic. Deborah Birx said the disease was extraordinarily widespread and was now affecting rural as well as urban areas. capital region of the Philippines is bringing back a stricter form of quarantine for 2 weeks to tackle a surge in COVID-19 cases. It follows a warning from doctors and nurses that the country was losing the fight against the disease. The Prime Minister of Kosovo says he has contracted the coronavirus and will self-isolate at home for 2 weeks. Abdullah Hoti made the announcement on his Facebook page, adding that he only had one symptom, a mild cough. Mexican security forces have captured the leader of a criminal gang which specialised in stealing fuel from pipelines. Antonio Yepes, better known as El Marro or the Sledgehammer, was one of the most wanted men in the country. Nearly 30 opposition parties in Venezuela have announced they're boycotting elections to choose a new parliament in December. The group said the poll would be fraudulent because of government interference. And strong winds and rain are battering the US state of Florida as tropical storm Isaias moves along its eastern coast. Beaches and parks have been closed with winds gusting up to 105 kilometres an hour. People have been advised to stay at home and to stock up on food, water and medicine. The storm's expected to head towards Georgia. BBC News.
When I was growing up, people would say, "What church do you belong to?" And I would